Most people walk into a car dealership and commit financial suicide without even realizing it. They sign a stack of papers, shake a salesman's hand, and drive off the lot in a shiny piece of plastic that loses 20% of its value before they even hit the first stoplight. They are buying a depreciating liability and calling it an achievement. But there is a small, elite group of people who do the exact opposite. They don't buy cars to spend money, they buy cars to capture it. These people didn't just buy vehicles, they bought glitches in the matrix. They bought machines that didn't just hold their value, they turned their owners into millionaires while sitting quietly in a climate-controlled garage. The difference between a money pit and a million-dollar asset isn't horsepower. It isn't the leather stitching or the top speed. It is something far more interesting. Because these cars were never just transportation. They were assets hiding in plain sight. My name is Woof, and today we are going to break down the 10 iconic cars that never lost value and the investment logic that made their owners rich. Before we look at the metal, we have to look at the math. Most cars are consumer goods. They are designed to be used, broken, and eventually crushed into a cube. But a collector asset behaves like fine art or prime real estate. There are three specific factors that create this value shield: scarcity, cultural significance, and collector demand. Scarcity is the supply side. If they only made 30 of them, the price floor is naturally high. Cultural significance is the story. Did it win at Le Mans? Was it on every kid's bedroom poster in the 80s? Collector demand is the exit strategy. It is the group of high net worth individuals who will fight each other at an auction to own a piece of history. When these three things align, you aren't looking at a car anymore. You are looking at a hedge against inflation with four wheels and an exhaust note. We start with the heavy hitters, the racing legends. These are the cars that didn't just drive, they made history. First on the list is the Ferrari 250 GTO. In the early 60s, you could buy one for about $18,000. Today, they trade for over $70 million. That is not a typo. That is a return on investment that makes Silicon Valley startups look like a lemonade stand. The reason is simple. Ferrari only made 36 of them. They were the apex predators of the track. Owning a 250 GTO is like owning a Picasso that you can actually drive. Next is the Porsche 911 Carrera RS 2.7. This was the street-legal race car that defined the Porsche legacy. It was light, raw, and dangerous. People who bought these in the 70s for a few $1,000s are now sitting on six-figure gold mines. These cars didn't just hold value, they became the gold standard for what a sports car should be. They are the blue-chip stocks of the automotive world. Then we move into the cultural icons. These are the cars that became more than machines. They became symbols of an era. Take the Lamborghini Countach. With its scissor doors and space-age design, it was the ultimate flex of the 1980s. It didn't matter if it was hard to drive or if you couldn't see out of the back window. It was visual clout in its purest form. The people who kept these garage queens in numbers-matching condition are now seeing prices skyrocket as the Wall Street generation buys back their childhood dreams. Then there is the DeLorean DMC-12. On paper, it was a failure. It was slow, heavy, and the company went bankrupt. But Back to the Future turned it into a time-traveling legend. Because of that cultural anchor, the DeLorean has a price floor that defies its actual performance. It is a nostalgia asset. When a car becomes a movie star, its value is no longer tied to its engine. It is tied to its legacy. Now we enter the stratosphere, the ultra-rare collectibles. When something is almost impossible to own, its value becomes almost impossible to measure. The McLaren F1 is the perfect example. For over a decade, it was the fastest production car in the world. It had a gold-lined engine bay and a central driving position. McLaren only built 106 of them. If you were lucky enough to buy one in the 90s for $1 million, you are now looking at a $25 million payday. It is the internal combustion swan song. Then you have the Bugatti Type 57 SC Atlantic. Only 4 were ever made. One is owned by Ralph Lauren. Another sold for over $30 million. These aren't cars in the traditional sense. They are sovereign wealth in physical form. They are the private islands of the car world. If you own one, you don't just have money, you have absolute scarcity. But here's where it gets interesting for the average investor. The unexpected winners. These are the cars that nobody expected to become assets. The Toyota Supra Mk4 is the poster child for this. In the 90s, it was just a Japanese sports car. But the Fast and Furious franchise and the tunability of the 2JZ engine turned it into a cult classic. Clean, unmodified Supras are now selling for over $200,000. People who bought them as daily drivers 20 years ago are now sitting on a house down payment. The same goes for the BMW E30 M3. It was a homologation special built for racing. For a long time, you could pick one up for $10,000. Now, you'll need a six-figure check to get a good one. These cars prove that recognizing a trend before the masses is the fastest way to build wealth. They are the penny stocks that went to the moon. To round out our list of 10, we have to look at the modern classics that are currently exploding. The ninth car is the Ford GT, specifically the 2005 and 2006 models. Ford built these to celebrate their centennial and their historic wins over Ferrari. They were sold for about $150,000 new. Today, they are pushing $500,000 and climbing. It is a raw, manual, American supercar that will never be replicated. The 10th car is the Mercedes-Benz 300 SL Gullwing. This is the ultimate blue-chip investment. With its iconic doors and racing pedigree, it is the car that every billionaire wants in their collection. It has never seen a significant dip in value because it is considered the most beautiful car ever made. If you bought one in the 90s, you have seen your net worth increase by millions without lifting a finger. If you look closely, these cars follow the exact same rules as the best real estate or stock investments. They are finite resources in a world of infinite demand. The best investments rarely look like investments in the beginning. They look like passions, they look like hobbies. The people who made the most money on these cars weren't day traders. They were visionaries who understood quality and scarcity before the rest of the world caught on. They understood that mass-produced plastic is a liability, but hand-built history is an asset. They didn't buy what was trendy today. They bought what would be iconic tomorrow. They were positioning themselves for a future market that didn't exist yet. This is why most people lose their shirts when they buy a car. They buy for ego instead of equity. They want the newest model with the latest tech. But tech is the first thing to become obsolete. The digital screen in your new SUV will be a paperweight in 10 years. The people who made money on these cars didn't just buy a vehicle, they bought something meaningful and limited. And then, this is the hard part, they waited. They didn't panic sell during a recession. They didn't trade up for the next shiny thing. They held their position because they knew what they had. Whether it is a vintage Porsche or a piece of land, the logic remains the same. Buy scarcity, buy quality, buy history, and then let time do the heavy lifting. Wealth isn't always a digital number on a screen. Sometimes it is sitting quietly in a garage, waiting for the right moment to be unleashed.